Welcome to the next installment of Minding Mind. Master Chinul, Part 2, Part B. But first, a little outtake. Jasmine and Black Orchid. I'm offering this incense Thanksgiving for being alive and that my health issue is completely helpable. As you can see, look at this. Looks like I gained 1,000 pounds. Look at me. It's all because my liver's not giving the right enzyme, and my kidneys aren't giving the right enzyme, and my high blood pressure was super high. Just makes you take life a little more seriously. And I may or may not tell the story of it. I haven't processed all my emotions yet. You know my method. So there will probably be an update to the Family Trauma Story Hour. For now, I can't be sick. I've got too much work to do. Have I shown you my library? Of course I have. It's all those bins. I have a short that shows you how big my library is. I have a big library. Anyway, I'm grateful to be alive. Now, let's continue with the reading. Understand I'm going to be all short of breath and everything. So, but it's almost like surviving. If I have many books to read, got to persevere until I run out of time. I probably won't run out of time. Alright. Turn off the air conditioner. Move this smoke out of my way. It's kinda in my face. Move my speaker down here because it's kinda in my hand space. Get the pencil. Now we begin. That is why it is said that we should not fear the arising of thoughts, just fear being slow to notice. It is also said, when thoughts arise, immediately notice them. Once you become aware of them, they are no longer there. Thus, in the experience of enlightened people, even if there are afflictions associated with the external world, all of them produce the most subtle and refined flavor. Just beware that confusion has no basis, that the illusionary triple world is like smoke swirling in the wind, and that if it had that the phantasmagoric six sense fields are like hot water melting ice. If you can practice this moment to moment, not neglecting to be attentive, seeing to it that concentration and insight are equally sustained, then love and hate will naturally lighten and thin out, while compassion and wisdom will naturally increase in clarity. Sinful deeds will naturally end, while meritorious actions will naturally progress. When afflictions are ended, then birth and death stop. If subtle flowings are permanently ended, the great knowledge of complete awareness alone remains, radiantly clear. Then you manifest millions of emanation bodies in the lands of the 10 directions, responding to potential as sensed, like the moon appearing in the highest skies when its reflection distributed throughout myriad waters, functioning adeptly to liberate boundless beings with affinity, joyful and happy without sorrow. This is called great enlightenment, honored by the world. Question. The meaning of equally sustained concentration and insight in the process of gradual cultivation is not really clear yet. Please explain further, with detailed instruction, how to break through confusion and lead us into the door of liberation. Answer. If we set up principles for entry into inner truth, there may be 1,000 methods, but all of them are within the categories of concentration and insight. To sum up their essentials, they are just the substance and function of our own essential nature. These are the aforementioned empty silence and open awareness. Concentration is the substance, insight is the function, or substance, and insight is the function. Being function identical to substance, insight is not apart from concentration. Being substance identical to function, concentration is not apart from insight. As Kauki said, the ground of mind has no confusion. It is inherently stable. The mind of ground has no folly. It is inherently wise. If you awaken like this, then the detachment and illumination of silence and awareness are not two. This is the sudden way, in which one cultivates both concentration and insight together as a pair. If we speak first of using profound silence to quell conditioned thinking, and then using alert awareness to quell oblivion, will those initial and subsequent remedies balanced and harmonized to lead into tranquility? This is considered the gradual way. This is the practice of those of inferior potentials. Although they say alertness and silence are equally maintained, nevertheless, they hold to tranquility as a practice. How could they be considered people who have completed their work, who are never apart from fundamental silence and fundamental awareness, naturally processing simultaneous cultivation of both? As Kauki said, spontaneous enlightenment and cultivation of practice are not in quietude. If you are a quietist from beginning to end, you are confused. Thus for adepts, the principle of equally maintaining concentration and insight is not a matter of effort. It is spontaneous and effortless, with no more particular time frame. When seeing and hearing, they are just so. When dressing and eating, they are just so. When defecating and urinating, they are just so. When conversing with people, they are just so. Whatever they are doing, walking, standing, sitting, reclining, speaking, silent, rejoicing, raging, at all times, and in everything, they are thus. Like empty boats riding the waves, going along with the high and the low, like a river winding through the mountains, curving at curves, and straight at straights, without minding any state of mind. Buoyantly going along with nature today, going along with nature buoyantly tomorrow, adapting to all circumstances without inhibition or impediment, neither stopping nor fostering good or evil, simple and straightforward, without artificiality, perception normal. Then there is not a single atom to make into an object, so why bother to work to clear anything away? Without a single thought producing feelings, there is no need for the power to forget mental objects. However, those whose obstructions are thick, whose habits are heavy, whose vision is lowly, and whose mind is unstable, those in whom ignorance is powerful and insight is weak, those who cannot avoid being altered by disturbance and quietude in dealing with good and bad situations, whose minds are not peaceful, cannot do the work of forgetting mental objects and clearing up the mind. As it is said, when the six sense faculties are in a controlled state so that the mind does not go along with objects, that is called concentration. When the mind and environment are both empty and radiant awareness is free from confusion, that is called insight. Although this is a formal approach, a gradual approach to concentration and insight, something practiced by those of inferior potentials, nevertheless, it cannot be omitted in the context of remedial teachings and practices. If there is a lot of excitement, you first use your concentration to conform to noumen and rein in the scattered mind. By not going along with mental objects, you merge with the original silence. If there is a lot of oblivion, then the next you use insight to analyze things and contemplate emptiness. When consciousness is free from confusion, you merge with the original awareness. You quell random imagination by concentration, and quell insensibility by insight. When disturbance and quietude are both forgotten, curative work is done. Then, when dealing with things, each passing thought returns to the source. Encountering situations, each state of mind merges with the way. Only when you spontaneously practice both together are you considered free. If you are like this, you can truly be called one who maintains concentration and insight equally, and clearly sees the Buddha nature. Question. Well, according to the distinctions you've made, there are two meanings to equal concentration, maintenance of concentration and insight in the process of cultivation in the aftermath of enlightenment. Well, one of them seems to involve spontaneous concentration and insight, and the other involves firmer concentration and insight. In reference to the spontaneous concentration and insight, you have said that naturally occurring silent awareness is originally uncontrived, and there is not a single atom to make into an object, so why bother to clear anything away? Without a single thought producing feelings, there is no need for the power to forget mental objects. I didn't even get to the answer yet. That's a heck of a question you got there, buddy. Okay, he's going to continue with his next 4 paragraphs of question. So I'm going to read it normally. So, in describing formal concentration insight, you have spoke of conforming to principle, concentrating on the scattered mind, analyzing phenomena, contemplating emptiness, balancing and tuning the mind to eliminate oblivion and distraction, so as to lead to non-contrivance. In making the distinction, you said that this is the gradual approach, which is practiced by those of lesser potential. I am not without doubt about these two approaches, to concentration and insight. If you say that they are to be practiced by one and the same individual, does that mean that one first relies on the due practice of spontaneous concentration and insight, then after that also applies the curative work of firmer concentration and insight? Or is it that one first relies on the firmer approach to balance and tune out oblivion and distraction, and then after that enters thereby spontaneous concentration and insight? If we first rely on spontaneous concentration and insight, their natural silence and awareness so that there's no more curative work. Why should we then also take up formal consultation and insight? This would be like losing the quality of a white jade by carving a design on it. If we first use formal consultation and insight until their curative effect is achieved, and then proceed to spontaneous consultation and insight, then this is the same as gradual cultivation practice prior to enlightenment, and a gradual approach by those of lesser, inferior faculties. How could it be called a sudden approach? Which is first to awaken and then to cultivate the practice afterwards, using effortless effort. If they are spontaneous, with neither preceding the other, yet the two kinds of concentration and insight, sudden and gradual, are different. How could they be practiced at once? Thus, the individual taking the sudden approach relies on the spontaneous way, effortlessly going along with the flow. Those of lesser potential taking the gradual approach follow the formal way, exerting effort and curative measures. The potentialities for which the two approaches are suited, the sudden and the gradual, are not the same. It is clear that one is superior to the other. How can initial enlightenment and subsequent practice both be analyzed into two types? Please give us a comprehensive explanation to enable us to put an end to our doubts. Answer. See all the meme, the girl thinking. Math. Alright. Answer. The analysis is perfectly clear. You are producing your own subjective doubts. Pursuing the words and creating interpretations, you create more and more doubt and confusion. When you get the meaning, you forget the words and do not bother to press the issue. But let me address the individually distinct modes of practice within the two approaches. To practice spontaneous concentration and insight is the sudden approach, using effortless effort, both operative, yet both tranquil, spontaneously cultivating intrinsic essence, naturally fulfilling the way of the Buddhas. To practice formal concentration and insight is the gradual approach taken before enlightenment by those of lesser potential, using curative work, striving to direct thought toward cutting off confusion and grasping quietude. The practices of these two approaches, sudden and gradual, are individually different and not to be mixed up. When we also discuss formal curative practices within the process of gradual cultivation after enlightenment, this does not include everything that is practiced by those whose potentialities require a gradual approach. It is just a matter of temporarily taking up expedient means. And why is this? Because among those who are suited to the sudden approach, there are also those whose potentials are superior, and those whose potentials are inferior. Thus their practice cannot be judged by the same standard. As for those whose afflictions are slight, who are light and easy in body and mind, who are detached from good in the midst of good, and detached from evil in the midst of evil, who are unmoved by the 8 winds, and calmly accept the 3 kinds of sensations, they rely on spontaneous concentration and insight, which they cultivate simultaneously without effort, naturally real and uncontrived, always in meditation, whether active or still, and fulfill the design of nature. Why should they pursue formal practices for curative purposes? When there is no illness, one does not seek medicine. As for those, in spite of having first realized sudden awakening, have deep afflictions and rigid mental habits, who give rise to feelings toward objects thought after thought, who create confrontations with situations in every state of mind, who are thereby befuddled and confused, killing and observing the normalcy of their silent awareness, it is appropriate for them to make provisional use of formal concentration and insight, not neglecting curative measures, balancing and tuning their minds to eliminate oblivion and distraction, thereby to enter into non-contrivance. Even though they make temporary use of curative practices to tune out their habit energies, because they have already attained sudden realization of the fundamental purity of the essence of mind and the fundamental emptiness of afflictions, therefore they do not fall into the affected practice of those with inferior potentialities who take the gradual approach. Why is this? When practice is cultivated before awakening, even if you work unremittingly, cultivating practice in every moment, you will conceive one doubt after another as you go along, and will be as yet unable to obtain non-obstruction. It will be like leaving something stuck in your chest. Signs of uneasiness will always be present. If curative practices are deployed to maturity over a long period of time, then the body and mind seem lightened and eased of acquired pollution. But even though you are light and easy, as long as you do not or have not cut through the root of doubt, curative practices are like stones placed on grass. You will still not have attained freedom in the realm of birth and death. That is why it is said that when practice is before enlightenment, it is not real practice. As for people who have realized enlightenment, even though they may have expedient techniques as curative measures, they never have a thought of doubt, and do not fall into affected habits. Over a period of time, they naturally attain perfect accord. The naturally real, subtle essence is spontaneously silently aware, focusing on all objects with each passing thought while annihilating all afflictions with each passing state of mind. This is not distinct from fulfilling supreme enlightenment by equal maintenance of spontaneous concentration and insight. So, even though formal concentration and insight are practiced by those with potential suited for the gradual approach, for people who have realized enlightenment, they can be said to transmute iron into gold. If you know this, then how can you entertain doubts based on dualistic views? Just because the two approaches to concentration and insight have an order of precedence? I hope that people who study the way will examine and savor these words and stop entertaining doubts and inhibiting themselves. If they have a strong will to seek supreme enlightenment, what other recourse do they have if they reject this? Do not cling to the letter, just comprehend the meaning, referring each point to your own self, so as to merge with the original source. Then the knowledge that has no teacher will spontaneously appear. The pattern of natural reality will be perfectly clear, unobscured, and you will attain the body of wisdom, attaining enlightenment without depending on anyone else. However, even though this sublime teaching is for everyone, unless they have already planted seeds of wisdom and have the faculties and capacity for the great vehicle, they cannot conceive a thought of genuine faith. And not only will they not believe in it, from time to time, there, from time to time are even those who slander and revile it, calling uninterrupted hell upon themselves. Even if you do not believe or accept the teaching, once it passes by your ears, it temporarily forms a connection. The merit of this, the virtue of this, cannot be measured. As it says in The Secret of Mind Alone, if you hear it, but do not believe, that still forms a cause of Buddhahood. If you study, but do not attain, that still increases the blessings of humans and celestials, not losing the true foundation of Buddhahood. How much more infinite are the merit and virtue of those who hear and believe, study and attain, preserve intact, and do not forget. How can their merit and virtue be measured? When we think back to past routine action, who knows for how many thousands of eons we've gone by the way of darkness into uninterrupted hell, experiencing all sorts of misery, of who knows how many kinds. So if we want to seek the Buddha way, unless we meet good friends, we will be forever sunk in darkness, unconsciously doing evil deeds. Sometimes we may reflect on this and unconsciously heave a sigh of lament. How can we relax and take it easy when it means experiencing the same troubles all over again? And who knows, who may ever again enable us to find this path of cultivating realization open and unobstructed. I'm scared. This can be called a blind tortoise finding a piece of driftwood, a minute seed hitting a needle. What is more felicitous than the way? If we get bored and backslide now, or if we get lazy, are always looking back, the minute we lose our lives, we will fall back into evil dispositions and suffer all sorts of pains. Then, even if we wish to hear a single line of Buddhist teaching, believe and understand it, accept and hold it in order to escape from the agony, how could it be possible? When you are on the brink of destruction, it is useless to have regrets. I pray that people who practice the way will not become heedless and not cling to greed and sensuality, but strive. They will strive as diligently as if they were saving their heads from burning, not forgetting to notice that impermanence is swift. The body is like the morning dew. Life is like the setting sunlight. Although we are here today, tomorrow cannot be guaranteed. Keep this in mind. Keep this in mind. Please keep this in mind. Me can tell you. Even if you temporarily rely on mundane, created goodness, you can still escape from the miserable routines of the worst states of being and attain exceptional rewards in higher states of being, experiencing all sorts of bliss. How much the more of this most profound teaching of the Supreme Vehicle, the merit and virtue produced just by momentarily conceiving faith in it, are such that no simile can convey the slightest amount thereof. The scripture says, if someone fills the worlds of a billion-world galaxy with precious substances, and gives them as offerings to the living beings of those worlds, causing them all to be fulfilled, and also teaches all the living beings of those worlds to attain the four realizations, the merit of that would be measureless and boundless, but it would not be equal to the merit and virtue attained by thinking about this teaching correctly for even the time it takes to eat a meal. So we know that this teaching of ours is most noble, most valuable, beyond comparison to any merit or virtue. Therefore, the scripture says, a moment of pure consciousness is the sight of enlightenment. It is better than building countless jewel shrines. The jewel shrines will eventually crumble into dust, whereas an instant of pure consciousness attains true awakening. I pray that people who practice the way will study and savor these words, keeping them earnestly in mind. If you do not liberate yourself in this lifetime, then in what lifetime will you liberate yourself? If you do not cultivate practice now, you will miss out for myriad eons. But if you do cultivate practice now, even if it's difficult, it'll gradually become easier. Until the work progresses of itself. How unfortunate it is that people today are starving, and yet when they encounter a royal feast, they do not have the sense to partake of it. They are sick, and yet when they meet a master physician, they do not have the sense to take the medicine prescribed. I cannot do anything for those who do not ask themselves what to do. Furthermore, constructed worldly affairs have forms that can be seen and effects that can be tested. When people attain one thing, it is regarded as wonderful. This mind source of ours has no perceptible shape or visible form. There is no way to talk about it, no way to think about it. Therefore, demons and outsiders have no opening to slander it, while gods cannot adequately praise it. So how can ordinary people, with shallow perception, describe it? What a pity. How can a frog in a well? Interesting. That is like a cosmic flashback to our story, The Starry River. Remember this, the story of the frog that was stuck in the hole? Yes, the frog in the well. What a pity. How can a frog in a well know how wide the ocean is? How can a jackal roar a lion's roar? So we know that the people in this age of derelict religion, who, when they hear this teaching, marvel at it, believe and understand it, accept and hold it, have already worked for many sages and planted roots of goodness over countless eons. They are those of the highest potential, who have formed a profound affinity with the true basis of wisdom. Therefore, the Diamond Scripture, the No-So Buddhi Sutra, one of my first videos, says, those who are capable of engendering faith in these statements obviously have already planted roots of goodness in the company of infinite Buddhas. It also says, this is expounded for those who set out on the great vehicle. It is expounded for those who set out on the supreme vehicle. I pray that those, what's wrong with my leg? Look what happens to me. Oh, you can't, see that? Yeah, girls and boys and guys and gals, that's called a demon. It's a demon. Yeah, Puffy and the Pillsbury Doughboy. Pray for my health. Let me finish this. Here we go. Na 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 na. I pray that those who seek the way will not be timid and weak, but courageous and bold. The good causes of past eons cannot yet be known. If you do not believe in excellence and are willing to be wretched, you will conceive ideas of difficulty and obstruction. If you do not cultivate this teaching now, even if you have good roots from former lifetimes, you're cutting them off now. Therefore, therefore, you are in ever deeper difficulty, becoming even more alienated. Now you have already arrived at the abode of the treasure. You should not go back empty-handed. Once you lose the body, the human body, you cannot get it back, even in 10,000 eons. Please, make sure to be prudent with it. Like I should have. Guiltify me. Master Chinul, you guiltify me. Be prudent with it. Could anyone with wisdom who knew where the treasure is paradoxically fail to seek it, instead spending an eternity lamenting poverty? If you want to get some treasure, let go of the skin bag. See you back later sometime. Bye.